In this video, we're just going to show a brief example of how to create a workflow against the incident table that takes action if the configuration item of the incident is related to SAP. So as you look at the screen here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new incident. And what we'd like to do is if the configuration item contains SAP, so in this case I'm creating an incident for financial accounting, then what we're going to do is we're going to start a workflow. So when I save this one, of course nothing's going to happen because a workflow is not wired to the incident table for this yet. And so what we'll do is I'll switch over to the workflow designer. I'll create a new workflow. We'll just call this SAP standard workflow, something like that. And then the table we're going to point at is the incident table. And the condition we're going to set is if one of the fields, so in this case it's going to be the configuration item, and we'll use the contains here. If it contains SAP, then we want to start this workflow. So go ahead and submit this. Alright, so we've got our workflow in place. The first thing I want to do is check the priority, and we'll take different paths based on what priority. So if I put in here or drag and drop the switch activity, you can see here we'll just say priority, and then we're not going to point at a variable, we're going to point at a field. We're going to point at the incident priority field. So I've selected that. And now what this does is it shows us all the possible priorities for the incident with paths out. So I'm actually going to connect all of these to the end for now. And then just to show you a quick example that this actually works, what you might want to do is go ahead and publish this and then switch back over to your incident record and create another incident. And so I'll go ahead and do that. And so I'll set SAP Financial Accounting as our configuration item. And all I'm going to do here is click Save. And now what's interesting is there's no way to quickly or easily see the workflow from within the incident record. So you could still see it if you went to the workflow menu. So I'll come down here to workflow, and if you went into active contexts, or actually all contexts, because that one's likely not active any longer. So you can see that the workflow ran, and you can see here's the incident that it ran against. And if you actually go into this record, click on show workflow, we can see that it ran and it went out of the low path. So all we're doing here is just validating that the workflow is hooked to the incident table correctly and that it actually fired when we put in the SAP configuration item, just validating that our conditions are working. So instead of having to go to workflow though, it would be nice if off of the incident we could just have a show workflow link. So as I scroll down in here, the idea is we'd like to have a link somewhere down on the page where we can see the workflow related to the incident. And so the way you do that is you come up to configure and we'll go to UI actions. And what we want to do is we're going to remove this incident filter here and just click on all. And we're going to look for any UI actions that exist that contain workflow. And you'll notice here there's a number of tables that have UI actions for show workflow. So I'm going to go to just this change request one here and click on show workflow. It's very simple to just switch this to point at the incident table. So as you look down here, what this is actually doing is running a function, and you can see there's some criteria for it. You really don't need to worry about any of that. For our example, all we're going to do is just change the table to the incident table. And I typically rename these so I know what they apply to. So in this case, we want to show the incident workflow. And this is really important. You need to do insert and stay. If you just do save, you're actually going to change the existing record that you're on. What you want to do here is insert and stay. And so once you do that, now what we can do is switch back to our incident, and we should have a UI action on the page now, and we do under related links. This is show incident workflow. Go ahead and click on that and it takes us right there. So it's a quick way to just add that UI action to your incident record so you can quickly see what happened. Let me switch over here back to our workflow. The only other thing we'll do here, let's check this out, is I wanted to show an example of creating a task. And so let's say if it's a critical priority, we want to create a task. And so I'm going to come down here and just do this generic create task, and I'm going to drag it and drop it onto the critical path. And we're going to say create SAP critical task, something like that. And then as you look at the task type, so any table in ServiceNow that inherits from task can be used as the task type. And so there's a generic task, which is what I'm going to do for this example. However, just know that if you create your own tables that inherit from task, or you want to use another table like you see in here, you can do that. So I'll go ahead and leave this task, and then it asks what task values or where the task value is going to come from. I'm going to leave it set at fields for now, and we're just going to say critical SAP task, and then I'm going to select the group this is going to get assigned to. So let's see here, a fulfillment group. I'm just going to start typing SAP, and I've got 3 different SAP groups that I've created, and I'm going to say SAP level 3. Go ahead and hit submit, and now we can take that. Another quick thing I'll show you too here that's kind of handy is if you want to reorder these conditions, you can right click on this and go to reorder conditions, and let's say I want critical at the top. The reason this is handy is it just makes the lines cleaner, so you can see what that's done there. And so what we'll do, and that's really all I'll do in the workflow for now, but just showing you how to quickly put one of these together. We'll go back to our incident record, I should say incident list, and we'll create a new incident. And this time what we'll do is put in configuration item SAP, and that should be fine. I guess the other thing I need to make sure is that the priority is critical, so let me make that happen. So there we go. So if I save this now, we should have a workflow link down here, and we do. And when I click on that, it should show us our workflow, and it should show us our task, which it does. So that worked exactly as I expected. The last thing I'll show you here is, let's say I want to show the tasks that are related to this incident. So the way you do that is there's this, you see these tabs down here where you can show other information related to the incident. If you right click on configure, there's an option here for related lists. So as you look at the screen, we're in the related lists that are available for the incident record. And if we scroll down to just task parent and add that, so we're going to that's looking at the generic task table, which is the type of task that we created. And this will show any task records that are related to the incident. So if I click save now, and we scroll down to the bottom, you can see that we have task SLAs, and then we now have tasks. And there's the task that we created in our workflow. So this task record that you see here, if we switch and look at our workflow, is this green highlighted activity here. So if we came back into workflow, and we'll go ahead and close this task just to show this. I'm sorry, go back into our incident record and close this task. Let's say close complete. And then go back and look at our workflow. You can see that it's gone to the end. So that's it, a simple example of creating a workflow, associating it to the incident table. I showed you how to add the workflow link to the incident record form, and then also how to show or add a task to the workflow and then show the related list that has the tasks that are associated to the incident.